Periods. Let's talk about it, okay? And so that's what virgin actually means. It's just gotta stick together. What do I always say? Listen to your pussy. She never lies. Sister Strain here, your favorite feisty feminist filmmaking duo. You're listening to The Sister Strain.
Hello. We are back and better than ever.
Yeah, I hope everyone had a great summer.
Yes, a good full girl summer, as we had suggested we all try. I know we said we were going to take a little bit of a break, but we decided to come back with a short series to focus on some social issues that we are facing here in Chatham-Kent.
Yeah, there's been a lot going on this summer since the beginning of it. A lot of conversations happening, a lot of questions up in the air, and we decided we wanted to kind of ask some of those questions for ourselves, do a little digging, find out some answers, and share some of that information so that we can all be moving forward into the fall a little more knowledge-based on our conversations.
A little more informed. If there's one thing that frustrates us, it's the spreading of misinformation, right? So when we're not certain, let's ask questions, let's get informed before we form opinions. And so what we're hoping to do today is, with our first guest, we have...
Thanks for having me. I'm Renee. I'm the Executive Director at R.O.C.K Reach Out Chatham-Kent.
Yes, we've been lucky that Renee has been very forthcoming in inviting us in so that we can learn more about what R.O.C.K provides the community of Chatham-Kent. And so we invited her in today so that she can share firsthand a little bit more about R.O.C.K missions, what they do, who they are, and answer a lot of the questions a lot of community members seem to have about R.O.C.K mission.
Happy to do so.
Yes. To start off, I guess, do you want to just tell us a little bit about R.O.C.K mission, specifically what type of resources they offer, how long it's been around, what its intentions are in Chatham-Kent?
Yeah, R.O.C.K is a very grassroots organization that started August of 2019, so we just hit our 6th year. It was kind of began out of recognition that there was a lot of people out in the community that weren't coming in to access resources. Our two co-founders, there was a couple and then another gentleman who were working at that time or volunteering at Hope Haven, who at that time was an overnight men's shelter. And they recognized that there was people in the community that weren't coming in, and they wanted to know why. So one day they just packed up some lunches and took a walk down kind of Main Street of Chatham, King Street, and down that way, and started to find people who, for whatever reasons at that time, weren't accessing services or weren't coming into the shelter overnight. And it just kind of grew from there. They recognized that there was a whole maybe social network of people that were disconnected and weren't using brick and mortar services, and it grew, and then in the last 6 years it's kind of exploded from there. We hit at the right time too with COVID. I think there was a lot of all of a sudden a lot of visible homelessness, and a lot of people really this shining light came upon Chatham-Kent that it wasn't a big city problem anymore, houselessness and whatnot. So we had to grow kind of exponentially with the huge increase in people experiencing homelessness and substance use and mental health concerns. So that's kind of our origin story, is the 15 lunches down Main Street, 2019, and fast forward to here, and it's huge.
And you're doing a lot more than passing out lunches at R.O.C.K missions. Yeah. So do you want to elaborate on some of the other supports?
Yeah. So we had to grow just in that. There are huge gaps in our community. We are a very rural, small townish, very conservative community. We often get overlooked as opposed to the bigger cities that surround us, right? So we don't get as many services specific to our region. But we had to grow with the need. So when we started to recognize, for example, that there was a lot of our friends that were using substances, I had a very fast growing education about what harm reduction was and what the purpose of it was. We have 2 drop-in centers, so it's not just us going. We do outreach 7 days a week in Chatham, but we also provide the ability for people to come in and get a meal and have a shower. We have a drop-in Chatham and Wallaceburg. But we also have our peer program. Everything that we do, all of our programming is based on people with lived and living expertise. Knowing that I have privilege and I haven't had experiences with homelessness or substance use, so I need them to educate me on what's best for them. What services do you need? You're the experts. You talk to me. All of our programming is all peer educated or peer informed. Plus, we have a great peer group, so we actually contract people that with lived and living expertise to do the work with us, to do the outreach with us, to try and get our foots in the door. But there's also the harm reduction, the hygiene, the basic needs, basic first aid. We try to bring as many services out to the people and meet them where they're at.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a lot of people might not know that beyond working with individuals who find themselves unhoused or struggle with substance abuse, you also provide that support and opportunity for family members of individuals who are struggling with those sorts of things too, right? Do you want to tell us about that?
Yeah. We started a support group through an organization called Moms Stop the Harm, which is, if anybody ever really wanted to dive into some of the work that outreach services or people that people that are like-minded to R.O.C.K, if I can say it that way. Mom Stop the Harm is an amazing organization that has nationwide reach for advocacy, education, and the like. But they also hold support groups across Ontario or across Canada for family members or friends. There's two different types of support groups. There's for people that have lost family members to an opioid poisoning or some kind of toxic drug poisoning. But there's also for family members or friends with people who are living the life. So people who maybe their son or daughter or whoever are still out there in the community living by their choice, but how do we support the families around them too? We have a lot of family members and friends, I think, in Chatham-Kent, and it's small and we've just started, but I think it's important to also be able to bring those folks together to support each other. And how do you navigate, and what are their resources to maybe learning from others who have been walking that path longer, so.
And also imagine from the information that you've gleaned and are gleaning from the individuals who are facing addictions or houselessness, you're obviously learning a lot of that information. Some of these family members and loved ones, even though they have an individual that they love who's dealing with these things, they may not know how to navigate that. And so not only are you able to learn this information to work with the individuals, but to also share those resources with the individuals who have loved ones who may be kind of floundering of like, what is the best choice, or how do I best support this person?
That's right.
In my family or as a friend? What does that role look like to me to be able to best support them and to know that I'm doing the right thing, or that someone else and also just sometimes you want the community, right? You want to know that someone else understands what you're feeling and someone else has been there before and knows how to navigate
it. And that was elaborated on at the last council meeting when there was a mother who spoke specifically about how her son is struggling with substance abuse and is hitting that 6-month mark, and acknowledging the fact that beyond all of those supports, what he really just needed was to feel loved.
That's right.
And to have that trusted relationship with, there's a lot of stigma, there's a lot of separation and distance, but we do need a place in our community where individuals who are struggling, if they can't go home or they have burned some bridges or anything like that, they still feel like they are seen, they are heard, they are valued, and they are loved.
That's right.
And I think that spoke volumes.
That's right. And what you were saying is so true, in that I think even in many factors of our lives, it's always so beneficial for us to just be able to look at someone and say, you get it.
Yeah.
Because I don't get it. I live a life of privilege, and I don't have any kind of immediate family member. I know by my work, but I don't have that personal connection with someone who is a loved one to me. So for these family members to be able to look at each other and have that, that I get it look, that spoke volumes to me in the importance of what we were doing, right? So, and all of our work is important, but it's important to also extend to the community that there are other ways that we are trying to mitigate some of the harsh realities of people that experience homelessness or use substances. Like it's not a pretty career path to take, if I can say it that way. It's hard and it's heavy, but while it's hard and heavy for us, we also recognize that it's hard and heavy for, one, the people that are living it, but two, their families and the people that care so deeply about them, right? So
I had the opportunity to speak to a couple individuals at the peer night last week for overdose awareness, a couple mothers who do utilize the R.O.C.K services and go to those support nights, and they were able to share with me how much it means to them, how they look forward to it, what they get out of it, and we are hopeful that one of them might come in at a later date to share with us personally, so you can learn a little bit more about that firsthand perspective of someone having a loved one struggling with these issues, how it affects them, and why a community support group like R.O.C.K Missions is integral to their own health and wellness as well.
And I think overall as a society, and we've talked about this in some of our other podcasts too, that we have the tendency as a society to stay in our little pockets of comfort, and it's fearful to step outside of them, and we love to other, we love to be like, oh, that's someone else, that's not me. But organizations and conversations like this are so important, because maybe you're not directly affected by it right now. Maybe you haven't dealt with houselessness or addictions, or you don't have someone close to you that you love that has dealt with them. But at any time you could, no one knows how they would navigate that situation. Right. Should they find themselves in it, or should they, one of their children struggle with that one day, and where do you go? Who do you speak to? How do you find that support? So it's so important to be having conversations where as a community we can start to understand it more, and also share those resources of should I find myself in a scenario like this, where would I go? Who would I speak to?
Right, exactly. We actually have had some very interesting conversations with a few different places. For example, like the Wallaceburg BIA, so that's the business association of the downtown business folks. A great group of people, but we've recognized that that houselessness is increasing quite quickly in Wallaceburg as well. And they were very much struggling with lots of people hanging around the downtown core, and the different challenges that poses, which I mean, we don't really need to get into what the challenges are, but they were recognizing that the challenges exist. And I think the best thing that we did was go in and meet with them and say, I validate all of your concerns, because they're absolutely valid. Those are their incomes and their sources, and some of them are their pride and joy, their businesses, they've built them. But how can we help? How can we provide those guys resources? Here's who to call in this case. Here's my outreach worker in Wallaceburg who knows everybody. If there's things that we can do to step in and help make those issues more manageable, but as well, here are your resources. Here, how can we teach you to have conversations with the people to say, because honestly, at the end of the day, they're just people, and we just have to have conversations, and we need to build relationships with them to say, when you do this, this is what happens, and how do we try to coexist in a more peaceful way that we're not disrupting each other, right? So for them to be able to come to us and say, please help us, please teach us, please work with us, that was one of the best moves that we've made in Wallaceburg, so.
Well, we've seen firsthand, we were able to sit in on a presentation with the municipality where you did have your peer supports, your peer group speaking directly to different members of the municipality in various different jobs to share that firsthand perspective and offer some resources and help alleviate some of the stigma associated with the whole situation. And that is the beauty of having a service group like yourself and having that bond with individuals who are experiencing this, is that it's not just you going in to speak to people and say, I think we should try this, this, and this. It's hearing directly from our citizens who are struggling with this. Here's what I've been through. Here's how this helps. This is why this, and this works and this doesn't. That fear usually comes from uncertainty of not knowing how to handle things, right? So when we share that knowledge and information and that awareness is built, we really bridge the gap between those who are experiencing something and those who are not, and try and come to that understanding of like, okay, well, I maybe can't stand in your shoes, but how could I be more compassionate about your experience? And how would I know how to navigate a challenge that might arise?
Yeah, that's right.
And I think when we look at the way the dialogues have been unfolding in Chatham-Kent since the early summer when the encampment was moved, and the way that Kat and I kind of like to navigate most of the stuff that we work on is there are problems. There are always going to be problems, and we can talk about them until we're blue in the face. But at some point you have to switch to be solution-based.
Yep.
If you're not part of creating the solutions, then you are part of continuing the problem. And something you had said there was, these are human beings. We have to have the conversations. We have to work towards peaceful solutions. And I'll say, and this is my own personal thing from witnessing how things have unfolded this summer, especially over social media. I see so much dialogue of, let's just get rid of encampments altogether. Get them out of our city. Send them to another city. Our municipality can't handle it. And honestly, it blows my mind a little bit of like, that doesn't help us move forward in any way. Like, there has to be an understanding that these are sisters, brothers, loved ones, family members from our community. You don't just send people away because you don't want to, look upon something anymore. And I think last night's council meeting, I was happy to see that there was more of a legal stance brought to the table, because I think the solution that some people are putting forward is like, just get rid of the encampments, get rid of them altogether. That is not something that's ever going to be a viable solution, and legally it is not a solution. So from a humanitarian heart, empathetically, if you don't see that that's not a solution, I hope that might squash some of the commentary of like, that's the answer, get rid of it, make it disappear.
And to go hand in hand with that, a lot of the negative feedback specifically towards R.O.C.K has been the commentary that if the encampment didn't exist, we wouldn't have a need for R.O.C.K missions, sort of tying that hand in hand, especially with the allegation that, you want the encampment to stay so you can keep getting rich on it, quote unquote. We'll touch on that. But clear from this conversation and digging a little bit deeper here that even if there wasn't an encampment, we would still need these services. There still will be individuals struggling with substance use. There will still be housing insecurity and food insecurity, and loved ones who are struggling with navigating those types of things with individuals in their family or friends group. So we all don't want to see people living rough, of course, right? So hopefully we do find a way to negate that. Either way, the work you do is still imperative to this community and will still be essential.
I was going to say, it's literally community building. It's sharing resources. It's breaking stigmas. It's sharing knowledge, sharing lived experience. It's starting dialogues, and it is creating a community for individuals in our community who otherwise feel like they're being left on the outskirts.
That's right.
And I did want to touch on one quick thing before we maybe move on to a different topic in regards to who R.O.C.K is and what resources they supply to the community. Is seeing some derogatory commentary this week in a couple different fashions about how R.O.C.K Missions has not referred individuals to treatment centers like Westover or Journeys. And we wanted to clarify, because it took me about 2 seconds to look into this myself, but for anyone who heard the commentary and has not done their own research, R.O.C Missions is not a medical facility. It is not an assessment and referral agency.
That's correct.
Correct?
That's correct.
So although you may work with individuals and suggest that they point them in the direction of withdrawal clinics or different healthcare agencies that could guide them on that path, you don't do that.
Yeah, we're not a referral-based agency at all. And just to clarify, just kind of what you guys had just talked about, is that I want to really pass along the message to whomever's listening, is that we are not R.O.C.K. We are also not pro-encampment. We don't think encampments are an end solution. We don't think that's the perfect way to keep all the people experiencing houselessness shoved together in one area. Like, that's not. I tried to explain this to a couple of different council people that I had conversations with, and basically it comes down to, if there's 3 shitty options that I have to choose from, the encampment is the least shittiest option. That is the least. It is the place where, and there is research and data to back up what I'm saying, and I will send some links that you guys can throw in your comments. Encampments are a necessity out of lack of other resources. That's all it is. And when we hear people saying, get rid of the encampments for whatever their own personal reasons are for expressing that sentiment, and again, I would absolutely validate people's feelings on that, because nobody should have to live in an encampment. Yeah. Nobody should. But for years and years and years, they've existed. This is not new to Ontario or Canada. This is just new to Chatham-Kent, and it's been about a year-ish. That they have a necessity in that they do provide social structure in some way for people that, like our friend yesterday spoke about her son living in an encampment. That's where he felt safest. That's where his network is. That's where friends can buddy up and monitor each other when they're using substances. That's where safety is. People living on their own out in the middle of nowhere that may not have extra supports to protect them. It's a lot of what street life is based on buddy system. So when I have to choose what's the least crappy option to keep people as safe as possible or as supported as possible, for now we are pro leave them where they're at and don't dismantle and don't do the damage that, there was a report from the Ombudsman about Toronto taking down the encampment that Councillor Thompson referred to last night, or McGregor, I'm not sure, I apologize if I'm misquoting, but what they did was harmful and traumatic, and people died, so we can't support something that is going to put our street friends in more danger. You just can't.
It brings to mind, I feel like there were studies done, I don't have any particular to quote, but the suggestion that isolation is actually more harmful to our health than like smoking a pack of cigarettes a day, right? Yeah. We are communal creatures. We do need to have that sense of community, of love, of togetherness and connectedness. So
that's right. And when you have people that in some way have been affected by brick and mortar services, there's a lot of long-standing trauma between colonialism, racism, ageism, ableism, etc., right? So these people, for whatever reasons, have in some way they don't attend traditional services, right? They don't like to go to the welfare building. They don't like to go to, or they've been hurt at the hospital in the ER or whatever, for whatever those. Yes, right? So when you ask them or you tell them, sorry, you can't even have any kind of social structure. So what you were saying about we are social creatures, you go where you feel most comfortable and accepted. Yeah. So people living in the encampment are accepted for what they are by other people living in the encampment. They're all living the same way. Yeah. That's their source of at least a modicum of acceptance. And how do you take that away from somebody? How do you? Yeah.
And I was going to say, even until this summer, it's like because of what has happened with the moving of the encampment, R.O.C.K missions all of a sudden has been like, it's like the encampment and R.O.C.K missions are one. So you stand here, it's like, no, that's not what in an ideal world, we're not pro-encampment. That's not. But we're dealing with the circumstances that we have. And I hear a lot of people talking too about their solutions of like, we need more resources, we need more medical facilities, we need more treatment centers. Yes, of course we do. That all takes time, money, resources, bringing people together. That takes years. Yeah. What do we do? What do you propose we do with those individuals in the meantime?
Right. Do we let them starve?
Right.
Do we just?
And also, when you're talking about, we need more resources, we need more medical, we need more support systems. That's how R.O.C.K Missions was built. It was people in our community, like it is a grassroots-led initiative. It's people who have been studying and navigating this for years, who have seen gaps in the system, or they see where people are falling through, and those individuals came together and created a grassroots initiative by taking what they were seeing and saying, something needs to be done. we're going to be the ones to step up to the plate, and we're going to be the ones to do it.
And unfortunately, when we are faced with a crisis or a problem where we don't seem to have a solution because we haven't been here before, we don't know how to navigate it, the easiest thing to do is to choose someone, point the finger, place all the blame, and say, if that was gone, we wouldn't have any of this. There's we want to blame. We want to choose the spotlight of someone who's led us here, someone who's at fault.
Yeah.
That's not true. It's the systems, the housing crisis, all of it. You're simply an organization that's providing support to individuals who are experiencing
and
this.
Because you have brought a voice to the table to speak on behalf of those individuals who aren't getting the chance to speak for themselves, I think the community has pointed that finger of negativity towards the organization overall. And it's not a fair conversation if everyone is not at the table.
No, it's true. It's true. And I say it, I try to remember to say it every time that I come to either a council meeting or a presentation or whatever that looks like, is that frankly, it's my privilege to, I'm honored to be able to have their voices. And I hope, and if I don't express it enough, I hope people recognize that I'm not speaking on behalf of myself or even R.O.C.K as the organization. We have these conversations with the people we serve. Those are the voices that I am amplifying. And when I speak as the face of R.O.C.K, I also recognize that I'm not an expert. I have a team of people who've worked in these sectors for years and years. Or if we don't know the answer to something, we go out and dig and look for the research and the evidence-backed data to say this is a good move that we should make, or this is how we should do our programming, or, I'm not an expert.
Well, if anyone was an expert, we wouldn't be having this crisis in the
But I
first
think
place.
it's
So-
important we touch on that because I have seen in the negative commentary the call it of what are her credentials? See, and it's specifically tied in with harm reduction. Do we want to touch on that real quick?
Please.
The fact that could you elaborate a little bit more about the team you have that advises you in that regard?
Yeah, for sure. So, and first and foremost, my credentials, I am a registered social service worker through the Ontario College of blah, blah, blah. And I've been doing this job with R.O.C.K. And this is not me, or maybe it is me bragging a little bit, I don't know.
Go ahead. Brag away.
I helped build this organization from the beginning. So I was around from the beginning, and I recognize but again, I didn't build it with some magical knowledge of how, charities work and any of that. I had to very specifically build a team full of people who know this work better than I. I had to do all the research on what it takes to open a nonprofit and do all this CRA work. And honestly, I'm the pencil pusher. I really am. I have to pay the bills and do the reports and, sign the contracts and whatever. I sit at my desk, and if I have a question, I have a team. I have a great team. And specifically speaking even towards harm reduction, we are so connected with Jordan Lindsay is the coordinator of the Chatham-Kent drug strategy, but she also has a background in public health, and she worked in a harm reduction position through public health for years, and we go back as far as AIDS Committee Windsor. She worked with them directly, and we're talking 10 years ago at this point, so this is a lady that knows harm reduction inside and out. Harm reduction specifically, if we want to drive down this road, because I know it's such a hot topic right now, and we were really lambasted last night about it. Harm reduction is actually provincially mandated. So every single municipality in Chatham-Kent through, Ontario Health or the Public Health Ontario has to have a harm reduction distribution program.
Right.
That is mandated by the provincial government. So every public health unit in Ontario has to have a harm reduction distribution program. So we work with Public Health, Chatham-Kent Public Health, quite closely through the organization that they have chosen to be the distributor. We are a large distributor, but we are doing this under the mandate of what
Yeah.
Public Health Ontario tells us to do.
And obviously, why R.O.C.K Missions would be the obvious, clear, and
That's
best
right.
choice to do this, because you are the organization in our community that is going and having the conversations face
That's
to
right.
face with the
And we're
individuals.
going to
who
invite
require
Jordan
this.
in so she can elaborate, because I think myself included, we could all learn a lot more about exactly what harm reduction is, what
Sure.
its intentions are, and maybe get a little bit clear about the stats and data that back it up and why it
That's
is
right.
an
That's
integral
right.
part in healthcare in Ontario. But yeah, I did want to touch on that, because there's a lot flying around about is it harm reduction or is it enabling, right? And so I want to
Or is Renee the fairy drug mother of Chatham?
Chatham, the fairy drug mother,
Yes.
your lauded title. So, anyone with that argument of it's enabling, well, it's mandated.
It's
There's a
mandated.
lot of information, which I know Jordan will share with us
She
about how it
absolutely
is
will.
not enabling and why it's essential.
But at the root of it, it's not a choice you have made. It's not a choice R.O.C.K Missions made overall of like, you know what, this is what we want to provide.
Good
this
versus
needs to be.
bad.
It's not
Right.
like this is what we.
That's
It
right.
is a government mandated necessity for municipalities, and you are working with the appropriate people
That's
to
right.
provide that to our municipality.
That's right. And when we recognize that that was another gap for our street friends that use substances, where there wasn't enough, we didn't feel there was enough distribution, or we could step into that role in some way to make sure that our community had access, as equitable access as anybody else, to getting a sterile needle or a sterile pipe or naloxone. We partnered with Public Health, Chatham-Kent Public Health, to be distributors of naloxone, which is a life-saving medication for someone who's having an opioid poisoning that is potentially causing death.
Yeah.
We jumped in that arena to say this is a role that we can fill. We believe in harm reduction, and you're absolutely right. Jordan is the person to go to that will give you all the stats and the data and the research and the different links. She speaks on it way better than I do. She's very much more eloquent about it as I am. But I also want to mention that harm reduction, people equate that right with paraphernalia, right? They go harm reduction drugs. That's not really the case. Harm reduction is a concept. Harm reduction is a concept that anything we do in our lives to reduce harms to ourselves or to our loved ones, that's harm reduction. I always use the example, wearing a seatbelt is harm reduction.
Yeah.
If you don't wear your seatbelt and you get in a crash, you're gonna hurt yourself.
Bicycle helmet.
Right, bicycle helmet, eating better, exercising, all of those things. Those are all harm reduction methods that we use. And frankly, I will leave it with Jordan to dig into that on your conversation with her. But it's necessary, and it's research and data backed that it works, and that it's important.
And a point blank question, because I know people have thought this or wonder this, as far as the enabling conversation. Does R.O.C.K Mission supply drugs to people?
No. What the concept of, if you want to bare bones it, you want to just get rid of the muck and the big words, we recognize that people have autonomy and they can make choices.
Yeah.
And if they're going to choose to use substances, we will walk in without judgment and enable them only in the way that it would reduce harm. So if you're going to choose to use substances anyways, and you need a sterile needle so that you do not pass a bloodborne disease, or you do not damage your skin any further, because needles are only supposed to be used once, and that's medically, that's across the board. Then we will provide that service to you. So a 10-cent needle versus $10,000 of Hep C treatment, right?
Absolutely.
Or a pipe that you're not passing, again, some kind of disease from contact, or you're not hurting yourself trying to smoke your substances out of random things that can hurt you, right? So again, it's not enabling, it's allowing people to make autonomous choices, and supporting them and that's health equity is what that is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So
Thank you for clarifying.
And that is a public safety concern. That is for the
Absolutely.
safety of the entire public.
that's right.
Thank you for
That's right.
debunking that myth. I love a good myth debunk, and I want to go to another one.
Okay.
Are you getting rich off
Yes.
this encampment? Please, will you tell us What are you making off the encampment being active?
I find that one very interesting and amusing, and I think that we live in such a society right now where people can find what's the word? They can just find drama anywhere, sort of, or like a.
It's easy to find things to hate, and it's easy to
It's
jump on
easy to
bandwagons.
spread negativity.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness!
It's much harder to digest the truth and the facts,
Yeah.
or to take the time to look up the facts. I actually did. So I wanted to, and
Well, first, you can share. You're very.
So
for anyone who wants to.
Full
Renee has been very
transparency.
transparent, very open. So will you share with us what your salary actually is?
Yeah, I mean, I make probably $60,000 a year. I don't make a lot of money. I've said it a couple times online before I really needed to gag myself. If encampments didn't exist, I don't have a desire to keep encampments in play so that I can keep my job. I have enough education and I have enough job credentials, I guess is a good way to call it, that I could probably make a lot more money than what I do. And I don't want to. I mean, maybe I'll have a career change down the road. I don't know. But I think it's very unfair to try and vilify somebody who,
Absolutely.
you know, and here's the thing, a lot of people get really reactive when we call out privilege. And I've used it a few times in council, and I've obviously hit a few nerves for people. But I want everybody to know that when I use the word privilege, I'm also looking in the mirror. I live a life of privilege. My husband and I, we are homeowners. We make a good combined income. Yeah. We recognize that we have a lot, and we go home every night into the safety of our own bed, in our own room where I can watch TV or get on the internet. I have my devices, and my kids are great and whatnot. So I'm also speaking to myself in that I recognize that I have privilege. So to say that we would keep people marginalized or living this way purposefully for my own middle income lifestyle.
It honestly has been so tough to watch the vilification of a woman we're sitting with right now who does a job as the director of a charity, making a lot less money than you could be making likely anywhere else, because you feel impassioned and inspired and you see enough need in your community that you are willing to take on the position that seemingly no one else in the community wants to take on.
And also this idea that anyone doing charitable work shouldn't get paid for that work is delusional. Then we wouldn't have anyone offering any supports or services.
That's what
And if you weren't getting paid, how would you be able to keep your house and feed your family?
And how do we keep programs steady, mandated? How do we get those reports out that everyone can access on the site to know exactly what's coming in, what's going out? How do we keep applying for grants? When we talk about the funding of R.O.C.K missions in Chatham-Kent, this bothers me the most.
The idea that you've just been handed
money,
all of these amounts of money, is obviously being said by people who have never applied for a grant in their life as two artists who constantly struggle to find funding for our projects and have done over dozens of grant submissions. They take a lot of time. They're very tedious, very meticulous.
It's a full-time job on its own to just apply for grants. And I wanted to, because we like to bring some facts in. So I did do some facts, and these will be shared. But when we look at you making roughly $60,000 a year, let's just like look at that and break that down a little bit, okay? Because the median income in Canada in 2025 is $62,800. So in all technicalities, you are making below the median income average income. There. I looked at what executive directors of charities in Canada generally make annually, and there was a bit of a flux somewhere between $70,000 to $110,000. So once again, you're making less than the low end of what most executive directors of charities in Canada are making. And then if you want to go a step further from that, executive directors of big companies that aren't charities, these are just people doing the exact same job that you are doing, but in the consumerism world, for corporations, not even out of the goodness of their heart. I don't know about you, I prefer the people doing the charitable work to make more money than the company, but maybe that's just me. you look there, you're well over 100K to 200K a year. So,
Wow.
so we need to stop this whole idea of it being a crazy amount of money for the human who is keeping a organization and initiative that is necessary in our community running, operating smoothly, continuing to apply for grants, continuing to get that funding. And this conversation that we keep having, oh, R.O.C.K's got, like, they're getting $1 million. What are they doing with it? When you actually look, and I will, like, once again, these are all articles. You've also been, R.O.C.K has been very transparent about where they get the funding, when they get the funding. And so I'll tap all of those articles on here as well. But, okay, so R.O.C.K Mission's got $710,000 3 years ago.
Yep.
So that was to run a 3-year program. This is not 1 year. This is 3 years of running a program. Recently, that ran out, and there was a Trillium grant that has come in to kind of take over that, which is less, which is $600,000. Now, apart from that, there's community donations. There's a couple of come together. See, the foundation, the community foundation, or little grants. Those are small. We're talking $5,000. Little things to supplement various initiatives around town. And then there is a bit from the community, because again, as we know, the communities have to have harm reduction happening in their towns, and also understanding that there was a gap with someone being in person contact with the individuals who are vulnerable in our community, and we needed to bridge that gap. So I think the municipality gave $200,000 for an 18-month period, and then more recently, I think $150,000.
Well, and correct me if I'm wrong, but that's also covering the cost of you and your peer group doing such informative presentations as the one we witnessed, as well as, do you not also have harm reduction kits that you supply to businesses that want to have that in case they should have an experience?
And thank you for bringing all of that up, because we lose so much context when somebody wants to say in a 5-minute deputation, well, we've given R.O.C.K $1 million.
Yeah.
I mean, that's over 5 or 6 years, right? So it's not like I got a check the other day for. Did I do something?
I think it's like a sound effect from the.
That's great.
Oh my God. We've got crickets coming in.
Nice.
What is that?
Right?
Oh my God. So
okay.
to clarify, we have Renee on a cushion because our stools are much higher, and her cushion was pressed against some button that we haven't explored on our soundboard. So bear with us. Let's get back.
That's okay. So again, contextually, if you don't understand where the fundings come from, I mean, we have had grants from what's called SUAP, and that's the substance use and prevention arm of federally from Health Canada. And then we had the Trillium grant, which we recently were given, which is an Ontario government source as well, where we were given $600,000 over 3 years. So that still has 2 years coming up. So we don't even have that money in our bank account yet. So we just started that grant. And we are funded by the municipality. We are funded as our outreach group for the municipality. We provide outreach 7 days a week to all outdoor locations in Chatham-Kent, which, I mean, I have to hire people and have qualified people and pay peers and things to keep these activities going. Some of these folks that are living out on the street, we are their only source of contact sometimes. And our job, mandated by the municipality, is to attempt to try and reconnect them in some way. Reconnect them to their OW worker, reconnect them to a family member, once the cabins were open, and this is a success story we haven't even shared yet, we managed to move 8 people from the encampment into the cabins.
That's amazing. That's
8 people over the last 4 or 5 days is an astounding win. So that's the work we're doing, right? So I have people that, most of them with some kind of lived expertise, who are going out and connecting with people and building those relationships. But so all of these funding pieces, when you spread them out over 4, 5, 6 years, $200,000 doesn't go far. And ask any person that runs an organization or even a business, $200,000 it seems like a huge number to us in our personal lives, but running an organization, it doesn't go that far.
Especially when you're doing so many different things.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Because people keep tossing around, there's $1 million, they have $1 million. And it's like, okay, break down the number. They have close to that over a 3-year span of time. And someone last night at the council meeting brought up that R.O.C.K is exponentially spending on salary because their salary is sitting at 44% of the budget. And I wanted to say, because as we spoke about, the annual report is available on the R.O.C.'s website. You can go and you can see that roughly, I think last year was like 139,000 was for salary. Yes, if you times that by 3 years, then you're 44% of the overall budget. That is not a lot of money.
No.
To run an organization where, yes, people do have to be paid for their time to show up every day. And when we break down the number even further, one component, we've already talked about a lot of the resources that R.O.C provides. One component of that is helping to feed our individuals in our community who are unhoused and do not have access to food. And if you really want to break into the numbers and if we want to make it make sense for people, the average cost to feed a family of 4 in 2025 is $16,833. We have a year. Yes, a year. Okay, and that's what we deem as appropriate. The 3 square meals a day. The basics of what we survive off of. We have roughly 250 unhoused individuals currently in Chatham-Kent. Yep. If we were feeding them the same way an average family of 4 is eating, that's $1,052,000 blah 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 dollars. That's $1 million right there in 1 year
for food.
So if you want to look at $1 million that's one way to spend $1 million to feed the humans who don't have access to food in our community. Forget the other resource. Forget the peer-to-peer. Forget the fact that we need salaried individuals to be continuing to go out in the community every day and do this.
People need to be paid for the work they're doing.
It's laughable.
Speaking of that, you could elaborate a little bit more about who exactly is getting paid as well.
That's right. And that's the other piece of the context that doesn't come out. So speaking to the 40 some odd percent, and I mean, maybe this is an error on bookkeeping on our end, but what we did, when you look at that 44%, you're not just looking at R.O.C employees, you're looking at funding that we were given specifically to pay peers to do peer work. So all that gets lumped into one payroll category in your QuickBooks or whatever. So while it looks like my payroll is heavy, it kind of is, but in that funding specifically, and you guys know how hard it is to, when you write for a grant, you have to be very specific in your budget, what you're spending.
Down to the penny.
Where is
every bit going?
Right? So when I am given money and I am saying, I want to spend this money to create this peer program, and this is how we are going to have this many peers, and we're going to pay this much to do this much work, I have to spend the money on that.
Yeah.
So not only were we paying our payroll of 10, 11, 12, I think right now we're up to 13 or 14 employees. I was also paying these peers the money that I was given to pay them with.
And I think that's where the
confusion. I want to clarify that to get it through people's heads. That the funding bodies have given a certain amount of money specifically to pay the peer.
That's right.
And it says it directly in the article about where the money came from and when it has come. It is a Trillium Grow grant for the peer-to-peer program.
Right.
And they also don't just put money in your account out of nowhere very easily and then not follow up with reports on how that money is being spent. And Carissa and I can speak to this personally. We just applied for a Trillium C grant with the Sexual Assault Crisis Center for a male programming we hope to bring to Chatham-Kent for positive masculinity. Anyway, it took us a very long time to work with them to put that grant together, because you have to be every step of the way. You have to have a plan, a very long and very detailed plan as to how you plan to go from right now today to the end of the year or 3 years, what you're going to do, who's going to do it, how it's going to be carried out, and at what cost every step is.
And I think it's very clear that by creating this animosity towards R.O.C missions in our community, we're fighting against the very thing that we're all standing up in deputations and claiming to want. That we're saying, this work has been done for a long time. There's a lot of these conversations already happening. There's a lot of people are doing this research, but we're realizing there's still gaps. We need to be doing something different. What else can we do? R.O.C was directly born out of that, and these grants are going towards programming to try something different. To say what's being done hasn't worked. Let's try something else. And Ontario Trillium Foundation has said, you know what? There might be something here. Let's provide resources to it so that they can carry this out and see if this does have a positive effect.
They took time to review your application amongst probably thousands of others. Let's be very real. It is very, very difficult to get a Trillium grant. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of scouring and determination that goes into choosing, yes, I think this program is fit for receiving funding. So if you've been granted this money, which again, they don't actually even have yet, okay, that means you really made a very incredible plan, a very detailed plan with a lot of great ideas for what you're going to try and implement moving forward.
And as we always do on our podcast, I absolutely urge you, if you have an ingenious idea on what we as a municipality can do to tackle this or to try something new to provide the resources that aren't currently be here, I urge you, hey, get it together, get a group of people, apply for a grant.
Why don't you hop on Trillium and put your plan and budget together and see how successful you are. Go try it.
And great, then there'd be more resources coming to our cities. But to be shitting on grassroots initiatives that have put the time in, that have had the conversations, that have put out the submissions for the grants and been granted those funds to put towards specific programming, we've got it all wrong. We've got it completely wrong. We need to be switching to solutions, and we need to be, if you are that impassioned, if you have that much to really invest your time and energy into it, I urge you, invest it into coming up with an initiative of your own and applying also for that funding that we're talking the federal, provincial governments aren't providing to us. Okay, well, people in our community went ahead, did the work themselves, and applied for grants to bring more resources to our town. So guess what? Join up on that and go do it for yourself too.
If this conversation hasn't provided enough clarity, which I think we touched on a lot of the confusion and question marks going around, we're going to continue having more conversations on this topic with various other individuals. I'd also urge you to go by R.O.C.K missions. Speak to Renee yourself. Your outreach program, you do offer volunteers to participate in certain facets. So if you want to see firsthand on the ground, who's R.O.C.K missions, what do they do, and be involved in that, why don't you go by and ask them, say, I'd like to get a little more informed, I'd like to see it for myself, I'd like to learn. Get out there and see how much work is involved in this, how much energy it takes, and why it's really essential in our community.
Yeah, well, and I hope I got my message across even at council last night when I just put a plea out there that said there's so many people having conversations about R.O.C.K right now. There's so many opinions and attitudes and whatnot, but no one's coming to us. No one other than you folks, and we do have some friends in the media and whatnot who have reported on all the work that's being done, but. Call me, email me. I'm usually a pretty open. I would love conversations. I've said this a million times. We chose a long time ago that we were going to exist or live in the gap with the people that are experiencing houselessness, with intersecting substance use and mental health concerns. We live in that gap. We chose to be there. That is the work that we do. We do it backed by research and evidence-based practice, but we're open. If you guys have solutions that we haven't figured out or that tons of other more educated and higher level people in the world haven't figured out yet, I mean, encampments are not new. Homelessness, houselessness is not new. Substance use is not new. It's growing. That's the problem, is it's not new. And thus far, other smarter countries may have figured it out. Canada hasn't caught up yet. But if somebody figures it out and has a solution, please come give it to me. We watch people every day struggling at the worst points in their lives, and we just want to be there with them. We just want to care about them and give them the best equity and access to services that we can provide. But I'm always open to conversations. R.O.C.K has been transparent from day one. Any financial information you want, it's on our website. Our board, you can contact them through email. If you don't want to talk to me, that's fine too. I have an entire board that is willing to have these conversations as well. So, I mean, we're here to continue the work. We're here to kind of try and let some of this stuff off of our back. It's not going to change what we do. It's not going to stop us from doing the work that we do.
An excellent job of really rising above the slandering
Yeah.
and the scapegoating that's happening right now. It's really shameful to see in the community. But, as two individuals who were following this and curious ourselves, all we did was come and ask as well. You've invited us in. You've shared a lot. I really hope that this conversation has been enlightening for a lot of individuals in the community. And this is sort of an exciting opportunity now to let you know that we have found a way, Sister Strain Film Corp, that we think will engage more individuals in the community to access this information and learn a little bit more about the solutions on the ground, what the municipality, what R.O.C.K missions are doing to combat the housing crisis, and also maybe get a little more firsthand perspective from individuals who are experiencing that every day. So we have been working on a short film documentary. This will be the first time we're kind of announcing that there will be a community screening, hopefully sometime early October.
We don't have a date just yet, but it's something that we feel is very important. We love that people are having conversations and passionate in our community. Let's just make sure we're bringing a wide spectrum of voices to the table, and we're also doing some research to really make sure that the information that we're spreading is informed, is factual, and is also working towards positive solutions for everyone in our community, as opposed to dwelling on problems and pointing fingers, because we're not going to get anywhere that way.
We're really thankful that we've been able to partner with R.O.C.K Mission so that we actually can do the on-hand learning, first-hand learning, I guess, and share that with more individuals. So thank you for agreeing to be a part of this process with us, inviting us in. We're really happy about our collaboration and really looking forward to sharing more learning with the community.
And as we learn and we share, we hope that our community, whoever's watching, will also have the desire to learn and be sharing this information so that we can be spreading it farther and making sure that we are informed, compassionate, and positive working community for everyone of our citizens.
Well, thank you.
And thank you guys for having me today. It's been a new and great experience, and I appreciate you helping us to be a voice for our community as well.
Thank you for the work that you do, and may you continue to be a badass despite some of the negativity out there.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay. Well, stay tuned for the rest of the series. There are more voices like Renee working in this sort of thing in Chatham-Kent, and we're going to hear from various different perspectives.
As always, feel free to write in, send us an email, contact us on one of our social medias. If you have a perspective of the story you'd like to share, like Renee said, send a message. Let's have the conversation.
Anyway, until next time.
Until next time. You've been listening to The Sister Strain. If you've got something you'd like to share with us, reach out to us. Contact@sisterstrain.com. Yours in sistership, The Sister Strain.